Hey guys, welcome to the World Age Group Championships, and we have practice going on right now, so I'm able to do video for class. And what I want to do today is just review linear kinetics, and to go back I need you to remember the key difference between kinematics and kinetics. Kinematics is motion without concern for forces. It doesn't matter if it's linear or angular. And kinetics is motion where we are concerned with the different forces. When I want to start by talking about the free body diagram, I've had a few people ask about that via email. And what I want you to do with your motion, once you've decided exactly what your athlete is doing and what you're studying, is to create, you can see I've got a beautiful little picture here. You're going to break down your motion into 3 phases. Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. And then you can see how I have the stick figure in each phase. And within the free body diagram, with your stick figure, I need you to show what they're doing and how you're breaking down that motion. But I need you to include 6 specific things and use an arrow to illustrate the angle of the force or the pressure that occurs. So the first thing would be friction. A lot of times that's the foot on the ground, hand with contact with the ball. The next thing is the ground reaction force. And remember, that's the force that's pushing up against your foot as you run or you jump. The next thing is body weight. That's always going to be a downward angle. And if you remember, body weight is always going to be anti-gravity. So that's minus 9.81 meters per second squared. The next thing would be fluid resistance. If you're running in this direction, the fluid resistance will be going against whatever direction you're moving in or the ball or the projectile's moving in. And fluid resistance can be water or air. The next thing is center of gravity. Remember, center of gravity is always within your body. So it's that exact middle point within the body. With males, it tends to be a bit higher because the upper body is larger. With women, it tends to be a little bit lower because our center of gravity, especially women who have curves, tend to have their center of gravity lower around their hips. Center of mass will be most times outside of the body, especially if you have your arms and legs moving forward or backward. The example typically is high jump. As the athlete runs up to the bar and then jumps and curves over, center of gravity stays within the body, but center of mass now moves below because it's inclusive of where the arms and legs are over the body. So you will have a free body diagram for each of the 3 phases, and you will have a point with an arrow that is illustrating the direction of friction, ground reaction force, fluid resistance, center of gravity, and center of mass. And if you want to do those in different colors, that's fine, whatever works best for you. I want to now walk through our key topic areas for the linear kinematics. We'll do angular kinematics when I get back. So gravity, remember, is a downward seeking force, minus 9.81 meters per second. I apologize for the noise. They're competing just on the other side of the curtain. Center of gravity is the point which the body's mass is equally balanced, and the position does not matter. It's always internal to the body. The center of mass, like I said earlier, is the point where the body's weight is equally balanced, but it does change with position, and it can be external and outside of the body. With the contact forces, ground reaction force, what we're looking at is Newton's laws of motion or physics. It's typically with respect to law number 3, the reaction provided by the surface. All surfaces provide a reaction force. So the ground, as you push against the ground is providing an upward force against your foot. Joint reaction force is the next one on the list. That's a net force reacting across the joint. We talked earlier in the semester, it can be compressive forces, which are pushing together. It can be shearing forces, where it's rotation. Friction, by definition, is the force acting when 2 surfaces come in contact, and they're in the friction will be in direct opposite of the motion that you're trying to go. So if I'm walking forward, the friction actually is going in the opposite direction. It's the friction of the track or the floor against my shoe. Fluid resistance, like I said earlier when we were talking about the free body diagram, can be air, water. It's the transfer of energy from an object to fluid while moving. And again, that can be the air, it can be water if your athlete's a swimmer. The inertial force, the way we talk about that, typically if you think of heel strike, as soon as your heel lands on the ground, one segment is exerting a force, causing a movement, and it's not because of muscular activity. So as soon as I land and hit my heel on the ground, it causes an inertial force, which makes my heel slap down to the ground. Muscle force is the pulling tensional force at the insertion of the muscle. So you're actively engaging the muscle and creating movement via muscle force. The elastic force a good example of that typically will be a trampolinist, diving board. You're creating a force onto an object that either bends or responds to your movement or your weight, for example, and that then is a response of elastic force that rebounds back up. And it's usually, there's a change in length. It can be in the tissue or external, but the diving board, the trampoline is a very good example. When you turn your topic list page over, we're looking at the special force applications. Centripetal force, remember, is that radial acceleration that's going around. Pressure is a force distribution, and typically we're talking about force over a certain amount of area. So pressure would be, if we're high jumping or long jumping, the pressure is going to be that force exerted right where my foot is, right at that unit area or that surface area. Work is a product of the magnitude of a force applied against an object and the distance it moves. So work would be, we usually use the example of an offensive lineman. So he's having to push and move an opponent, and then the work is the magnitude or the direction of the force against the opposite player. So he's creating work to move and defend that athlete. Power is work done per unit of time. So if you think of any type of explosive movement, power is going to be whatever occurred real quick. And remember, with that, we're including time. So power is really work plus time. How long did it take? How quick did they produce the work? And that's where we get the power from. Energy is the capacity to do work. There can be kinetic or potential energy. And potential energy, if you recall from like middle school, potential energy is that stored energy that exists. It's just waiting for something to happen. And kinetic energy is actually the energy used while something's moving. You can use billiards. So while the billiard ball is sitting on the table, it's displaying potential energy. As soon as it's hit and begins to move, then that potential energy has transferred into kinetic energy, which allows the movement. Now we're looking at the linear laws of motion. So the law of inertia, basically the best way to explain that, and it's on your slides on the PowerPoint, but objects at rest stay at rest, objects in motion stay in motion. So the object will be at rest until something acts on it and causes motion. And the flip to that is that objects will be in motion and they will stay in motion until something acts upon them and stops the motion. So you can see the guy jumping in the background. He's obviously in motion, and he will remain in motion unless something happens or causes it to stop. We have a couple things that cause him to stop, the guy in the white and red. Gravity doesn't allow him to just keep going up in the air, but the trampoline bed at the bottom of the jump actually stops that downward motion. So there's something always acting on an object that stops it from continuing to go on, and gravity almost always is the best example to use for that. Or if you're using, like football, a couple of you are using football players. So when the quarterback throws the football, one of the first things that begins to act on it to make it not stay in motion is gravity. Law of acceleration, force equals mass times acceleration. You have a change of motion, and it's proportional to the force impressed and in the same direction of the straight line in which the force is impressed. So what you're thinking about, again, if you look at the trampolinist in the background, the acceleration is going to continue, and it's proportional to the force that he's pushing down into the trampoline bed. And it will occur in a straight line. If he doesn't land right, obviously he's going to go off at an angle. If he lands correctly, he's going to go straight up and come right back down. So the law of acceleration is saying that the change in motion is proportional to the force impressed, i.e. him pushing down into the trampoline, and it will be in the direction that he pushes. So if he pushes up straight, he's going to go back up straight. You just saw right there, he pushed off at a wrong angle, which just made him crash. He's not one of our athletes, so I don't have to run and get him. And then the last one is law of action and reaction. To every action, there is always an opposite and equal reaction. Again, you can use trampoline. We typically use, the best examples are the horse and cart. If you think of when you're riding in a wagon or a taxi or, you know, a horse and buggy, before you actually take off and move forward, what happens? Your initial response actually is that you move backwards to go forwards. And if you think of the track start, you're down in the blocks, and in order for you to move forward, what do you have to do? You have to push back against the blocks and then go forward. So that just summarizes really well that description of every action always has an opposite and equal reaction. So again, in order to move forward, we have to push backwards. A few other questions. That's it for our key topics for linear kinetics. And again, I fly home tomorrow, so I'll be on campus on Tuesday. A little bit tired, but I'll be there. And several people have asked if they have to apply all of the key topics to all three phases. And no, you don't. Just make sure that the key topic, which you're going to bullet in your paper, make sure that the key topic is applied and described specifically to your athlete. I don't want you to give me a definition back, because I've given you the definition. Don't give it back to me. But do a 3 to a 5 sentence description of how that topic applies specifically to your athlete, regardless of which phase it's in. So you're not going through the list and doing the list for each of the three phases. I just want you to draw the 3 free body diagrams to show you what the 3 phases are, and use those 6 topics with arrows in your 3 free body diagrams. But then for all of the descriptive key topics, just one phase. And what you'll find is that some of the descriptions, the topics, work well with linear kinematics, some work well with angular kinetics, and just apply it however you think it best fits. All right, I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving. This is our last day of competition for the World Age Group Championships. Today is the 17 and 18-year-olds in all the events, and I will see everyone soon. My computer crashed while I was here, so I'm having to use my iPad, so I don't have much opportunity to communicate back and forth. But I will definitely see you guys on Tuesday, and I hope all is going well. Bye-bye.